Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Horse Center with just me, your plain host, Rich, and I, unquestionable number one co-host in the universe, Swiss Army Sean. Tonight, we are joined by MAGE co-owner Ramiro Restrepo. Ramiro, how are you tonight?
Great. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
I was looking around YouTube to kind of get caught up on some questions to ask you and so forth. You've been everywhere, but you haven't been anywhere until you've been here. So thanks for joining and putting the best for last.
Love it. Love it. Great. Good stuff, man.
All right, fantastic. So go back a little bit in the beginning. Your family comes from the horse racing arena, from what I read. Your grandfather back in Colombia was a trainer and a rider as well. And in addition to that, you have some uncles that has some connection to another horse racing great by the name of Secretariat. So what kind of stories did they tell you about that?
No, it was very cool. Coming over from South America in the late 60s, guys, it was a different climate than coming over in 2023. When you didn't speak the language back then, the availability, accessibility, and acceptability was completely different than the climate it is today. I mean, you look at the trainer statistics up and down, the U.S. racing profile, and there's a bunch of Latin American trainers out there. So when they had to come over here, they had to kind of hit the reset button and start, whether it was hot walking, grooming, up their way to assistant trainers, foremans, and then eventually opening up their own barns. But it was pretty cool. They worked for a lot of amazing outfits back in the 60s and 70s, and Lucian Lauren was one of them. So it was pretty cool to have heard stories of them with Angle Light and River Ridge and Secretariat, and them being the ones in the afternoons being allowed to to being the only ones allowed to go in there and make their food and give them their feed tub and just be around a lot of old famous racing legends. When I was, let's see, probably like 91, I was about 12, and I was at Saratoga working at the barn, and Lucian Lauren came by and caught up with my grandpa and my uncle, and there was a really cool like a yellow Kodak camera photo of Lucian Lauren, my grandfather, and myself, and it was cool that Lucian Lauren was calling my grandpa Papa. So nice touch there, and really cool to have a little bit of that pedigree in me.
Speaking of pedigree, you have that Miami pedigree in you. So let's talk about the important things first. The Miami Heat. Okay, now I see a lot of snarky things on your Twitter about Dave Portnoy and going to get sick and die and all that from the Celtics losing. But be honest, how much were you sweating it out there in Game 7 before it started?
So I went to Game 6 with my brother, and we were there firsthand to get nailed on the wire like that. So it was such a bad beat that come Game 7, I mean, I pretty much was using reverse psychology. I had mailed it in mentally. I was just like, we gave this up, and it's a monumental defeat. And if we win, I'll be surprised, and if we lose, well, it wasn't meant to be. So I really had no expectation going into Game 7. So to see us smoke them like that by 20, it was just unbelievable. I mean, the game was never in doubt, So it was an easy coast wire to wire victory over there.
Yeah, it makes for a good stuff. Now we're here to talk about horse racing stories. That's what we do at Horse Center. But I'm also interested as a young man at one point in time. I can remember being down in South Beach when I was a young man, and you were down at South Beach in a different role as a young man at the nightclub. So what do you think would be more interesting, your horse racing stories or your nightclub stories?
Well, if this is a family program, we're going to go with the horse racing stories. But South Beach was an amazing time in my life, and I worked for, some amazing people that kind of like are the Todd Pletcher, D. Wayne Lucas of the nightlife world. So it was pretty cool to have gotten an in from day one with some pretty high profile nightlife people that to this day, that's their careers, and they own and operate a lot of amazing venues, not only in Miami, but all over the world. So those adventures are a little more parental explicit lyrics, but it was a great time. Met a lot of amazing people from all over the world, and all levels. You had athletes, celebrities, gangsters, drug dealers, stockbrokers, finance guys, 9-to-5 workers. I mean, it was a crazy melting pot of interesting characters and personalities that would come to the South Beach nightlife arena, and it was pretty wild to have had a front row to that lifestyle when I did. It was a good 14-year run in that world.
So I would imagine if I had to ask you who are the nicest, and I would probably guess if you went in order, like the more notorious they were, probably the nicer they were.
I met Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses, and he was actually a very nice guy. That was probably shocking just because, you grew up listening to Guns N' Roses and, you hear about the word rock star, that they might be untouchable, but he was amazing. And I'd say Snoop Dogg is another really, really nice personality. So I put those two at the top of the really nice person list.
All right, cool. So the next time we're down in Miami visiting Gulfstream, we're going to check by you to make sure we can get into all the clubs without waiting in line. Looking forward to that. I've never had an opportunity to do that, so I can have a little bit of restricted or arrested development, my hall pass, so to speak. All right. So Sean, the most incomparable host in the world, co-host in the world, how are you tonight?
I'm great. So Ramiro, let's go back to MAGE and let's go from the beginning with purchasing him and that whole setup. Did you ever really have the dreams and thoughts that you'd be here where you are today?
No, I think anyone in who tells you that the day that they buy a horse, they think they're gonna, win the Kentucky Derby, is selling you a dream. But I think anyone who goes in, with their best intention and works the sale really hard, and looks at hundreds of horses and really puts in the homework. What you're trying to do is just buy a really nice horse, hopefully if MAGE would have turned out to be a turf, miler grade 1 winner or a sprint champ, I'd be just as, over the moon that I bought a really nice horse. And I think when you're at a sale looking for a horse, you're just looking for a great runner that is going to have success, but only time will tell where he'll take you. So, could I have dreamed of this incredible ride? No, but we did have all the confidence that he was going to be a good horse. That's why we pressed to bid more than we had at the moment to buy him, just because we had that kind of faith and confidence in what we were doing. But this ride has been it really leaves you speechless.
Were there concerns? I know there were a lot of concerns outside of far as picking MAGE that he didn't race as a 2-year-old. Was that ever a concern to you?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Was it ever a concern to you? Because it's big concern besides what was it justify that one not racing as a 2-year-old. Was it ever a concern to you that he never raced as a 2-year-old?
No, we give all our horses like 4 to 6 weeks off after the 2-year-old sales, just to let them decompress from that NFL combine that they're put through. When he got back up and running, let's see, like around mid-June, I'd say, he was ready to run. Probably like we were looking for a maiden at Keeneland in October, and we were probably gonna work shy then, and then come November, the weather in Kentucky changed pretty quickly. There was a lot of off tracks, and we just felt that we had been on the road, like the barn had been on the road since April, while Gustavo Jr. and Sr. we all live in Miami. They have a place in Lexington, and they have a barn at the Thoroughbred Training Center in Paris, Kentucky. So it was kind of like, look, it's the end of the year. The weather in Kentucky is like hit or miss. Why debut a horse on the off track when we really don't need to? Let's take him down to Miami and see what's cooking over there. When he got to Gulfstream, it probably took an extra month for him to adjust to the surfaces between the Thoroughbred Center and Gulfstream, which is why we didn't run in December. And then when the condition book came out, Gustavo Sr. saw the Pegasus Maiden Special, and even though he had been ready, we were just like, you know what? Let's just wait till this Pegasus day. So it wasn't like there was no concerns that he wasn't ready, because he was. He could have easily run in October. It's just sometimes the racing schedule gods don't coincide with your plans, and you just got to wait. So it wasn't a matter of fitness or or being mentally, mature to perform. It just didn't happen. So that never came into mind.
And, we talked about the heat earlier, the Florida Derby, where it looked like he was clear and he was going to win. And then Forte tracks him down. It kind of was the same type of feeling. Like, take us through those emotions.
Well, to taking a step back to kind of lead into your question, after his maiden, a lot of people were commenting to me like we should run an allowance. And Gulfstream only had a 1 1/8 allowance race. And we didn't want to jump up from 7 furlongs to 9 that quickly. So we saw with a short stretch and $400,000 purse, let's take a shot at the Fountain of Youth. Half a furlong less, more money. And when you saw like the probable field, it looked like a 1X in the Fountain of Youth. Other than a couple horses that we were just, let's see what kind of education he'll get. And he learned so much in that Fountain of Youth race, and we learned a lot about him. And he came out of the race so well that he learned more finishing 4th in a Fountain of Youth than winning easily a 1X second time out. When we trained him from the Fountain of Youth to the Florida Derby, we had him eat a little dirt, and he took it in stride. So when Louis Size in the paddock asked us if he doesn't break well, can he sit? We were like, yeah, he'll take the dirt. Don't worry about it. Just put him in a good rhythm, and bring him home. What we didn't know, what Louis didn't know, what the horse, because as the horse is learning as he's going, right? Like each race, the horse is getting more lessons. When Louis was last at the half-mile pole, and he asked the horse, nobody knew that the horse had that kind of turn of foot, because his first 2 races were on the engine races. So when he found himself to hit the lead so quickly and in that ferocious turn of foot, yeah, there's a part of you that could say, oh, are you upset that you got snapped on the line? But we knew that the Florida Derby wasn't the end-all, be-all. We were just so happy that we discovered that the horse had a different dimension of running, and that we had discovered he had this crazy turn of foot. And Louis, after the race, was kind of like, man, I wish it's like a dance partner. I wish I would have, practiced a little bit, or, been able to ride him before. Because Louis had, in the nicest way, with not spun us, because that's a bad way to put it, but like with due time, he had told us that he couldn't ride him in the maiden, and he couldn't ride him in the Fountain of Youth. So we already knew that Louis wanted to ride the horse, but him making a little bit of an early move and having to ask for that kind of full force, all out half-mile move was a bit much. Those things overcame any thoughts of, oh wow, we got beat. That's some, we're sad about it. We were actually so pleased that he put on the race that he did.
So here, Charles says he's the only one on horse racing today to pick Mage to win. Okay, Charles, you get your call. Of course, we have to get Terry in here. We have to have the Terry. When are you going to ship some horses out to Golden Gate Fields?
My buddy's from Berkeley, and I've been out to Golden Gate Fields. It's a really cool track, man, and I love the area. But I don't. We don't have enough horses yet to venture all the way out to California just yet. Hopefully in the future, if the barn gets a little more spike in inventory, we'll be able to take a shot out there.
I'd imagine with your success with Mage, you're probably getting a lot of phone calls in there. Now, you mentioned in the show here that you spent a little bit more money on Mage than you wanted to. I read that you went to 290, and were you worried if somebody was going to go 295 on you, or what's the next bid up?
It's one of those things, guys. When you're bidding on horses, the only thing I could liken it to is when you're a quarterback in the pocket and they snap the ball and the blitz is coming at you. You have a split-second decision to bid, or the hammers is dropping at that moment. And I know Gustavo Jr., who was in my ear on the phone, was kept encouraging me. to keep on bidding in so many words. Like he was really adamant about it, and you know, 290 is a funny number because the next bid would have been 300. They were asking for 300, and I think psychologically, whoever the underbidder was, that was playing on them too, because and even though it's only $10,000 in bidding in real world, that's like another level of commitment almost psychologically. It's like second and third or second and six is it plays with your mind where run pass, and at that moment we were so hell-bent on going with the horse, we were constantly bidding. Like there was no pause in our bidding. We were just like bid. The underbidder was being deliberate and taking their time. So I think that 300 commitment for them is what stopped them from hitting it again. But knowing my history with bidding with Gustavo Jr., we would have probably bid again. But I'm glad we didn't have to face that question.
So it's probably a little bit like a poker game. You're not quite sure what cards the other person's holding, so you're kind of calling their bluff, so to speak. And it's probably the same reason why gas stations charge $5.99 a gallon instead of $6, right? It just makes you think it's a little bit cheaper.
Sure. Yeah.
So you had mentioned that you saw the horse, you wanted the horse. Without giving away any trade secrets, when you're looking at a horse, what makes you say, that is the one I want? Is it all breeding? Are you looking at the muscle structure? What are you looking at?
When an agent has a predetermined budget from their clients, they have an idea of what they're going to be looking for, like when they're filtering out the catalog. Myself, I know right away that the horses that are by like Uncle Mo and Tap It and Into Mischief are horses that I won't be able to afford, especially the ones that are perceived to be first, second round picks. Like they're going to go for way more than I have. So right away, even though I've looked at them maybe on film, their breeze videos and such, that's not going to be my point of emphasis. When I'm looking at 800 horses in a sale, you have to start narrowing it down because you're going to go mentally, the capacity to look at 800 horses in a short period of time is impossible. So like myself, I've had a lot of success in this business. Like if you were to go through the list of the best horses that I've purchased that have gone on to do something, they've been first crop sires. So like Cantharos, Violence, Outwork, Palace Malice, Good Magic. Without even blinking, I can think of those 5 stallions that their first crop babies, I purchased them and did well. They were stallions that I thought that had, positive qualities, that their babies were going to have a little bit of talent, and I went looking for what I thought was going to be the best looking athletic son or daughter of a first crop sire, because a first crop sire is going to get his best chance at stud. The farms are going to support first year stallions with the best quality mares, and yet at the same time, that unproven nature of what their babies can do might lay off the heaviest hitters to drop the most money on them. So I'm already, when I get the catalog, I'm already looking for first year sires and what looks sexy on paper as far as the female family. What hints of talent. If there's a pedigree there that has 15, 20 horses listed and none have run in black type races, am I going to be blessed by the gods to be lucky number 21 to find the one that's going to be a runner? Probably not. I'm just playing the law of averages. So I try to find a mix of a first year sire that I think is talented and that you're maybe hearing a little bit of buzz about them, whether from the guys at the farm or the people in Ocala who are already breaking them for the 2-year-old sales, and look for a little female family that has shown a little bit of life, a little bit of black type performance in there. And then you go look at their physicals and hope that, you find something that's good looking enough, athletic enough, correct enough, and, has the right angles that you've learned, that have success, physical characteristics and traits that you find to be repetitive in successful horses. So that little recipe right there has done well for myself, who normally goes to a sale with 3rd to 5th round pick money. it's I've been to a lot of sales where I see these perceived first and second rounders, and some do go on and have tons of success on the track and or do well in the breeding shed or whatever. But since I've never had access to that kind of capital or a salary cap space, I just kind of avoid focusing on them too much, and try to find a little niche that works for me.
So how did you go from the nightlife into the bloodstock business? I know you had some family history there. Did you reach out to people? If somebody like Sean, for example, wanted to get into that business, what would he do?
No, while I was still working in nightlife in 2007, I had an uncle of mine who told me, he goes, listen, he was at Aqueduct, and it was the winter meet was closing. He goes, look, there's a grass filly here who's run 3 times. My parents had divorced about 10 years earlier. So my direct involvement with racing, where my parents had 30, 40 horses from the 80s through the late 90s, like 99, 2000, they got out of the business. They divorced. The money went up. They dispersed the horses, and that was that. So there was like a good, gosh, I would say 8-9 year gap there, more or less, where we were out of the racing business, but my uncle still had small stables. So one of my uncles called me and he goes, look, there's a filly here. She's run 3 times, maiden 40 at Aqueduct and at Belmont on the grass, and there's no more grass racing, and the trainer's having trouble. He'll sell her to us for $5,000. And he's like, I know your mom, my mom, and it's her brother, right? My uncle was like, I know you guys have been out of it. You're 30, because I'm 44 now. And he goes, would you like to jump into ownership? And I looked at the filly and I was like, all right, F it, I'll do it, $5,000. And we ran her at Tampa, and she ran 3rd, maiden 25, and then we were able to put her maiden 50 on the grass, which is what we wanted, and she won at 18-1. And right then and there, I've said this before, if I wasn't fully converted at that point, the vampire put its fangs in my neck, and it was a wrap. I was bit, but my attachment to horse racing from childhood never left. Like, the amount of reading that I did with racing almanacs, the Blood Horse, Thoroughbred Times, those were like my comic books. The amount of races that I've watched since the early 80s in an obsessive nature. I mean, there's people that can recite to you Murderers Row from 1926 Yankees till when they went on their late 90s run in 2000s. For myself, it was horse racing. Like, owners, I learned to reading the racing form, not in school, so I'm 44, but like my mind is like, if I'm 60, I've been watching racing and then being lucky enough to work all those summers at Saratoga, hot walking, being a railbird, watching nice horses being trained. I mean, Fly So Free, Hansel, Corporate Report, Meadow Star, Turn Back the Alarm. I mean, these were amazing horses that I got to see up close, train daily, and picking things up from my uncles and stuff. All that stuff, when you're young, you can absorb like a sponge a lot of things. And even though I chose other career paths, I never stopped going to the racetrack regularly. Like, it was a 2-day a week, 3-day a week thing through high school and college. I mean, I never deviated from the track. I just wasn't participating in it. And then, humbly, while running for maiden 50 at Tampa, brother, I also claimed a bunch of horses running for $3,000-$4,000 at Finger Lakes, Thistledown, and won a bunch of races there. So cutting your teeth, like learning the art of claiming horses and reading PPs, and when I dipped my toes at the sales, I was buying $18,000 horses, $33,000 horses, $20,000 horses that I was putting together partnerships with fraternity brothers. So, people see the Derby and it's amazing. And, I even bought a Breeders' Cup winner as a juvenile that I sold as a 2-year-old, juvenile turf winner Structor a couple of years ago as well. And that's amazing, but that comes with opportunity. But the groundwork of my, progress started, even 8 years before that. So it's been a 15-year journey buying horses at an entry level, but the common theme was that they kept winning. Like if I had a $4,000 claimer, he'd win 4 races in a meet, and that gives you the confidence that no matter the talent level, there are horses that are beasts at that level. You know what I mean? Like they're the alphas of that division, albeit the lowest division, and those things is what gives you confidence that when you step up your, your budget or your, or your ability to buy a little higher quality horse. The common theme was that the horses kept on performing well, and that gave me the confidence to keep on fighting through. In 08, in 2015, is when I decided to go full time into this business after doing it for like 7 or 8 years part time. So in 2015, I dedicated myself full time to this, and been fortunate that it's been a steady climb since.
We've been at this for a while, Sean. So that means we got about another 6 years to go, bro, before we're big time.
There we go. Well,
yeah.
That was I'm sure you envisioned winning the Kentucky Derby for years as a child. What was that versus the actual feeling of MAGE crosses the wire and you're a Kentucky Derby winner?
Man, I get a little emotional at this because I don't know if you guys have family members that you guys are super attached to from childhood, and mine is my grandfather and my uncles. From my childhood, I'd always hear that we're going to have a horse in the Derby, we're going to lead one over in the Derby before we die, we're going to do it, and it never happened. My uncle is 77, the other one's in his early, I think he's 82, and my grandfather died. The day never came, so you hear the rah-rah speech that it's going to happen. It never happens. So the fact, as we were going through the qualifying process, that we were able to get the horse into the gate for the Derby, for myself, it was the ultimate win already. I was like, if, I'm a person of faith, if my grandfather's somewhere, he's looking down and he's saying the kid did it. You know what I mean? He did it for us. Like he checked the mark. So when I called my mother and I told her, call your brothers and tell them I'm bringing them down to the Derby, to have them with me in the box and do the Derby walk, it was like the dream is fulfilled. We did it. What you guys have been talking about for 50 years, we did it. We're doing the walk. You're here with me. You're a part of this horse. What the lessons and the time and the love that you gave to me from when I could crawl with the horse. It's done. We did it. So like the whole week, there was no pressure. I was like, I have a horse that has talent. He's not gonna embarrass us. He's gonna put up a good race. And my uncles are here. My mom is here. My aunts are here. So for us to be able to do that, I already had won the race before the race was run. As the race was happening, I was still like just enjoying the race because of the composure of like, wow, he's moving up, whatever. But when they hit the quarter pole, I lost my mind. Like I lost it. You go haywire, and I've gone nuts as a horse player before on a big ticket, and I've, rooted home some of my other horses. I'm an emotional person, but that feeling right then and there of rooting your horse home in the Derby, you go blind and you go bananas. So no dream can prepare you for that stretch run. So, I was fortunate that America's Best Racing and NBC teamed up to kind of randomly pick me out of a hat, or to follow me throughout the day of the Derby. They just caught lightning in a bottle, man. And geez, to capture that moment of me on camera going nuts down the lane is as exposing your naked soul to anybody, man. It was just the most incredible thing.
So you were like that OTB guy that we see on Twitter with he's got the horse coming down the lane and he's freaking out and everyone's looking at him like, what is with that dude?
100%, man.
I would be probably, I couldn't imagine myself. So I would, I lose it with horses in just in a $2 exacta bet. Sorry to interrupt you, Sean.
Oh, it's okay. My internet's going in and out too. Hopefully it's okay.
So we have a
So
little bit
the
more
two-
recruiting going on here. Besides,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, Sean, to interrupt you. John De Silva says he's reached out to you already. He wants you to come to the Pennsylvania Derby with Mage. So can we make some news today and make John happy and say we'll see you in Pennsylvania?
Well, we're still trying to figure out our next two races. It's either going to be the Jim Dandy or the Haskell. Kind of figuring out which of those two to attack. Initially, we were thinking just Jim Dandy, but with the Haskell giving you an extra week to the Travers, and being that Good Magic also won the Haskell itself, and how well the horse has taken to his little break that he's on now, and how he's put on a bunch of weight back on, and his energy level maybe 9 weeks from the Preakness rather than 11 10 weeks from the Preakness. So we're gonna go Haskell or Jim Dandy into the Travers. That's the game plan, and after that we'll just be wide open. We'll have to just see how the horse goes. But right now, the horse has had a couple of weeks just chilled out, just in the at the spa, enjoying himself at the Thoroughbred Center, turned on a little paddock and coming back in and just really getting all the treatments and all the care, and hopefully we can make it in tip top shape for these next two races and figure it out.
And some shredded carrots.
That's his thing, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. You give him a regular carrot, and the little bugger will look at you like what is that? And then you shred it for him, and he's just particular, man.
Well, we all have our quirks, right? That's what I said to Sean.
Yeah.
Sean mentioned that somebody was weird, and I told him, "We know what, Sean? We're all weird in our own ways. The only matter is degree. That's what's different." Right?
Yeah.
So speaking of the Preakness, let's rewind a little bit to that race as well. Looked like he was making that ferocious turn of foot, starting to make up ground on the two leaders, and then kind of veered in a little bit. And the jockey Javier had to break his stride a little bit. You feel like that maybe the gap between the Derby and the Preakness, maybe a little leg weary there?
There's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and I'm sure there's a lot of analysts and horse players and experts can review game film and make their opinions. I know that going 113 in the Preakness versus 110 in the Derby is a 15 length difference.
Mm-hmm.
And from my point of view, I on the contrary was not happy with Brad Cox's horse scratching from the race. With Louis Size, Brad Cox, I just don't believe that the horse, that Johnny V would have been allowed to get away with such a masterful walk the dog ride. I don't think he would have sat back, because I just don't believe that their style and that horse that had some, forwardly placed positioning would have allowed that race to go that slow. If you watch our race, we're sitting third down the backstretch, and before the turn, we drop back to fifth and pull back to go outside. So you're already going from being down on the inside to going outside on a turn where you're going to be losing ground. So he went from being a length and a half behind the leaders to 2.5 lengths behind the leaders, who are going in 49, 48 and 4 and 113. There's no way. Like, these are horses that were grade 1 performers. And I want to be really clear about this. If you start comparing every year horses, you're going to be miserable. You can't compare Man of War to Citation to Seattle Slew, Seattle 2 to Secretary to Seattle Slew, down to Cigar. You're going to be those are fights. You have to accept greatness and good for the crop that it is right now. You may not like the horses. You may think they're terrible. It's a terrible grade. That's what we have. That's our product. Okay. Blazing Seven is a Grade 1 winner. National Treasure, if I'm not mistaken, is a Grade 1 performer. They were horses that were pointed for this race on purpose. They weren't, and they come from the barns of Bob Baffert and Chad Brown, not Journeyman Jones from small town USA. Okay, these are quality horses for the quality that we have in this crop of 2023. They're good horses. They're very good horses. We're all very good horses for what 2023 is. Great horses for what 2023 is. That's what the product is. If they're gonna be tough to beat, because they're prepared by expert horsemen to give an A1A effort, and they were in our barn. We saw them every day for a week. They looked fantastic. They were primed. They were pumped. They looked great, and you knew it was going to be a fight. If those horses are tough to beat when you're going fast, when you're going slow, they're going to be even harder to beat because they have their full tank in reserve, ready for the sprint home. And they came home pretty decent. They didn't come home in 26. I want to go back and look at the chart, but they went sub 24. They came home moving, and they didn't put any lengths on us. But we just didn't make up the ground that we lost from the turn home. We stayed, the three of us, in the same position. We lost by 2.5. And we were 2.5 on the turn, and we were 2.5 at the wire. We put distance on the 4th place horse. So everybody came home the way it was. We put in our run. We did what we were supposed to do. Now, could you argue that, I think as flesh and blood, animals, 2 weeks is going to be tough. We were the only ones that came back to try it. Is that going to be, you're asking a football player to play a Super Bowl on Sunday and then play another Super Bowl on Thursday. You're asking him to do something that's not traditional, and he's never going to be asked to do that again. So, but even with that, the horse showed us all the positive signs that he was ready to perform. If he would have shown us anything in the 2 weeks that he wasn't ready to perform, we wouldn't have gone to the Preakness. He was still, showing us the signs that he was ready to put on a good race, and I believe he ran a good race. But the race flow dynamics didn't go the way we were hoping for, and I quickly saw when they went 40-4, my mind was like, man, we're in trouble. And when they said 113 and change, I was like, we're done, because those horses, that's a morning canter for Blazing Sevens and National Treasure. It's a canter. They're full of energy. So if the three of us are all equally fast and you guys get a 10-yard head start on me, I'm not going to close on you, because we're all going to finish just how we started. You got the head start on me, and that was that. So, hindsight, Monday morning jockey, you could always say, oh gosh, should we have gone to the lead at that pace? Should we have just stayed on the inside all the way through? Who knows? Those are things that you leave that up to people who like to debate. That's not. I can't go into the DeLorean, hit 88 miles per hour and change and give Javi different tactics. It is what it is, man. We fired our shot. If you would have told me in Christmas that Santa was going to give me a Derby win and an American Classic third, I would have called him the fat liar of the planet award. So we're happy, man. It didn't work out. He still ran a great race, and hopefully we have a big second half of the year.
Yeah, Charles thinks he says it looks like you're headed for the BC Classic. That's the main goal. Is that the main goal if the horse is ready?
For sure. That's our dream, is to do a July race, whether it's Jim Dandy Haskell into Travers, and from the Travers see what's the best route to get him to the Classic. I mean, that would be ideal for us.
So, Ramiro, with you mentioning about how we have to accept the horses for what they are versus what they were, I'm in the minority that thinks the Triple Crown schedule should be changed as well. Do you agree with that?
I'm in everything in life. I'm a real middle of the ground person. Some people might say that I don't want to take a standard opinion. I'm just always very respectful of tradition versus change. In our lifetime, maybe our parents' lifetime, all we've known is the current Triple Crown schedule. But if you go to our grandparents' timeline or our great grandparents' timeline, wasn't the Triple Crown schedule. They were at different racetracks. They were held at different distances. Heck, one race was before. I think the Preakness was before the Derby. It wasn't even known as the Triple Crown until after Sir Barton. Then it got nicknamed the Triple Crown. So, it's just a point of view as to where you change it. If you change it, I have never been in the position to have a lot of horses that are competing in this circuit, right? So, that's a decision that the powers that be make. I'm cool with it either way. My first mindset is I need horses. I need to have the opportunity to buy more horses that are competing in this races, and we'll do our best to have our horses ready for whatever it's put in front of us. I think the distances should not be touched. I really believe that I'm more of a stickler on the distances. I would never want to touch the distances. For marketing's sake, for the sake of publicity, for the sake of with the current schedule that horses are running every 4 weeks, would I not be against the change that spaced them out? One like the first Saturday in May, first Saturday in June, and the first Saturday in July. I wouldn't be against it, just because I know from a marketing point of view, you could really build a lot from it, and maybe more people would be inclined to participate in all of them with the 4 weeks spacing. That's more traditional to the standards of today. But I'm not going to cry and whine and force that change or be against the current format, because we had a horse that was 2 lengths from winning the Preakness and would have gone to the Belmont with no problem. So I'm cool with if changes happen. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but at the same time, I'm not here signing petitions to change it. What I do stand for is the distances. I think those distances are. I think those classic distances should be preserved and should be maintained 100%.
So that's the next question too, is how do you incentivize, or would there be anything that they could do in horse racing that would have MAGE versus National Treasure in the Belmont in 3 weeks? Obviously, it's not happening now, but in the future, could there be some kind of prize fund with the pools, like points per race, or there has to be a way they can approve that? Not
you mean with the current spacing?
Well,
yeah, with the current spacing it is now,
to get the
but
horse
incentive to have you guys run MAGE in 3 weeks if the horse is ready. Because obviously, like you said, if he won, he would be going for the Triple Crown and most likely would be running.
Yeah,
now there's really
sure, yeah.
Now there's no real incentive for you guys to take him to the Belmont.
Yeah, it's funny. Before the Derby, people were saying you're too lightly raced. And are you sure? Why are you forcing him to run in this race? Why are you forcing him to run the Florida Derby? Why are you pushing him too quickly to get into the Derby? Now you run 2 quick races back to back. For us, it was more about the strategy of getting the horse, his gas tank refilled to the top. Like Visa tried that Triple Crown bonus many moons ago, where it was like a $5 million bonus. I'm sure if you adjust it to the inflation of today, maybe a $10 million bonus, but at the same time, like, you always want to do right by the horse, man, because I don't have a barn full of mages, and I'm not talking about being a Derby winner. I'm talking about being a grade 1 performer. There's people that have 10, 15, 20 graded stakes caliber horses in their barn and can ask more of their horses. We have to protect MAGE like the crown jewels, man. You know what I mean? Like, if he's not 100% instead of 90%, we have to wait till he's 100% for his next start. So even if there would have been a bonus right now for the Belmont, there's no monetary amount that's going to make me sacrifice my horse's welfare, because that horse is like my, is like our kid, even if he would have run second, like there's no reason to force my horse to run when he's giving you everything that you've asked from him. We've packed in some serious races since January into this horse. I mean, the horses are our noble servants, man. They lay it down. They give you their heart, and you have to be able to manage him over the course of a year. For anyone who like every athlete has an off season, except in horse racing, where you're expected to have a horse be at his peak condition for 12 months. Like, people forget, these are athletes, man. There's no difference between Aaron Judge, LeBron James, and Mage or any other top thoroughbred. Like, they're athletes, and you have to monitor their physical. They're going to go through slumps. They're going to go through waves. If they if they hit a single rather than a home run, people start booing them all of a sudden, and you're like, dude, he got a hit. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you have to understand, like, if you go back and watch racing, like when I started watching, like in the 80s and 90s, you had like horses beat each other up and got their revenge, and the wins and losses that created that character and grit, that developed their greatness as they ran into their 4-year-old years, and the L's were just lessons for the next bout. In boxing, you had Hagler who fought Hearns, who fought Leonard. Everybody took turns, Duran, and took turns beating each other, and there was great bouts. You have to understand that ebb and flow of the athlete with the horse. At this moment, I don't care if you told me there was a $20 million bonus about Belmont. The horse has given me everything he's got since January. He deserves to power up 2 months to get ready for, to keep going the rest of the year. You know what I mean? Like, I have to give him an off season at some point so that he can be ready to give me that top level performance the rest of the year. I'm not going to be so short-sighted to say, all right, I'm going to, push to win the Belmont with nothing on the line when over a dollar amount, when there are so many more races ahead for him,
Speaking of big dollar amounts, micro shareholder Mariana Foreman says, any ideas about the Dubai with Forte? Not Forte, excuse me, Mage.
I mean, we've actually taken a horse before to Dubai. We ran in the Godolphin Mile third a couple of years ago, so we're quite familiar with the facility, with the training regiment there, and with the hospitality that's afforded in Dubai. You always have to take into account how the horse is doing after the Breeders' Cup, clearly, and how we could possibly prep for that if that's on the table. I know we've also been reached out by the Saudi Cup people as well about potential for next year to as a feeler, and those things are all open to conversation. You also have to take into account, we are having conversation with stallion farms, and you always want to respect their wishes, depending on what plans they might have for the horse as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things a lot of variables that could dictate what the next move is for the horse for 2024.
And then I know we told you half an hour. We were way over that, so I apologize. But one
No,
last
it's cool,
thing.
man. No
John
worries.
De Silva says they better not move the Pegasus to Santa Anita next year. I mean, who wants 5 horses in the Pegasus Classic there? But it would be a great party for Team Mage if the horse returns to the Pegasus at Gulfstream. You can't let them take that to Santa Anita next year. You guys have to be like the marquee celebration for the Pegasus at Gulfstream.
Yeah, there's two. I believe they're going to have two Pegasus, a West Coast Pegasus and an East Coast Pegasus. I believe that's what I read. I don't want to be, quoted on that, but I believe that's what I read. There's going to be two Pegasuses, and obviously we all live in Miami. We Gulfstream is a home of ours, and it would be lovely to have the horse run back on his home court in front of a lot of friends and family. But again, we'll just wait and see what in the end, man. We all have these these selfish dreams and hopes, but the horse is the one that's going to take us there. So we're tentatively scheduling out his summer, and hopefully we can make some good performances, and then we'll see what the rest of the year has.
I'm sure winning the Travers, as you say, growing up at Saratoga, would be a dream come true as well.
Oh man, uh, that's another really special thing, you know. Like whether it's melancholy or just nostalgia or whatever, like it brings back so many amazing memories where, at least in your mind, it was just such a pure and innocent time. You know,
Mhm.
you'd wake up with a box of donuts, you'd have the burgers on the back stretch, you watch the races at Saratoga, the smells, the sights and sounds of like the old time horse guys at Saratoga, and the tradition of the Travers is unbelievable, and to be able to achieve a race like that would be right up there.
Yeah, those sorts of things, nostalgia, as you call it, are the sort of things that connect one family generation to the next, to the next, to the next, so that the great great grandson that may never meet you will know all about you because of things like that. So,
Yeah,
all
that'd be
right, Sean,
really cool.
any final questions from you? Because again, we're way over schedule as always. Whenever I'm the host, I'm horrible with time.
That's all right.
The last thing I'll end with is you've always been an approachable guy and you always communicate on social and stuff. So how much has that changed with the Kentucky Derby? Not changed, because obviously you're still the same guy, met you at the Preakness and everything else. But how much more have people been reaching out to you and trying to schedule you for shows like this and befriend you and everything else?
I've never had a life moment like a wedding or a childbirth where you have this onrush of people, especially in the era of social media platforms where people can touch you, rather easily with a message, with a comment. So it's been intense to have the onrush of friends, families, acquaintances, or people that you don't know reaching out with congratulations or with questions and wanting your time. I think as I could, the general public doesn't focus on horse racing 24/7, 365. The Derby is one of the few times of the year that the world looks over to it. And I think as a aspiring steward of the sport, you have to be gracious with your time to represent our sport and be open, because there are people who want to learn and hear about the team, the horse, and you should provide that, that kind of openness. As far as like interaction, always game to talk about points of views and stuff like that. I'm always very respectful of people's opinions because I love sports in general. So I would hear the Yankees versus Red Sox or Hurricanes versus Seminoles, so I get it. People are passionate. What's been tough is when people insult you or your horse on a personal level outside the boundaries of talking about the game.
Mhm.
That to me is like, that's kind of bugs you a little bit, because you say to yourself, you don't even know me and you don't know my horse. Why are you calling him this, that, or the other? Did you lose money? Did he cause you to lose money? Is that why you're being, like if you don't think the horse is any count, that's cool. You have your opinion. I've sat in Yankee Stadium with the bleacher creatures in the center field, telling Andy Pettit that he's garbage and that's a Hall of Famer, telling Jeter that he doesn't belong on playing baseball, and that Joe Torre should go back to the little leagues. They're saying it with all the passion, and in their minds, they're right. So you have to understand that people are gonna be really passionate, and there's extreme people, and those things have been I've chosen to just ignore those comments rather to engage. But if it's a constructive conversation, I'll always have an answer. I don't shy away from talking to anybody about anything. But it's when it gets to more of a personal level that you're like, you start doing the Tyson flinch, because it kind of bugs you. You know what I mean? But you
Well,
have to
that's
let
what
that.
Mike Tyson said, right? About people behind the keyboards. He says,
Yeah.
the thing about social media, it's changed people, because back in the day when you had to deal with folks face to face, you would never dare say something to somebody that might punch you in the mouth, right? So
Yeah, and verbally you can counter someone rather quickly, and there's no character limit. On social media, you have like 3 seconds to come back with a limited character count, and I'm not going to engage into those into that type of exchange. But constructive stuff, talking about the game, truly talking about the races, trying to be objective and things like that, I'll always engage, man. Just because I've been on those platforms since before I had a Derby horse, and that didn't change me. It won't change me now, and it certainly didn't change me then. So I'll just keep being me.
Well, we hope you continue to be you, and then down the line, the more successful you become, the more hopefully we'll be somewhere like trailing you, like 50 lengths behind, but still keeping up pace at the end of the race. And then hopefully we can have you back with more success down the line. And again, when we come down to Miami next time around to go to Gulfstream Park, I'm looking you up, and you're taking us out. You have no choice.
I hope you guys are ready, because my nightlife races are 1.5 miles. So
Hey,
I hope you guys got it.
Much like Mage taking time off, when I know I'm coming, it's going to be a 9-week break for me to get ready, brother. But when I get there, you better be ready.
All right, good deal, man. Good deal.
Right. Thanks for your time tonight, Ramiro. We
Hey,
greatly
doubt.
appreciate it. Had a great time, and look forward to talking to you again.
For sure, boys. Thanks a lot, man. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks,
care.
Ramiro.
Bye.
All right, Mr. Sean, big-headed myself. How about that? I got to get my skills are. What a fantastic conversation. I thought about that. That was a great conversation. I enjoyed it, and Ramiro was a wonderful guest, very forthright, and I appreciate that. Right, and we get occasional haters too, Sean. And what do I always tell you about the haters?
Yeah.
I always tell you ignore them. Right? What else? What difference does it make?
Absolutely.
The bigger
But he
you
does
get,
a good job.
right,
He does
the
a good
bigger
job.
you
I
get, the
mean,
more you're going to get of them. That's it.
yeah. I walked right up to him at the Preakness and, told him who I was, I inboxed you, everything, checked it, got him on the show. So he's really approachable. Again, he's another guy that
who can stay away from the irresistible Swiss Army
well,
Sean?
but he's another guy that's good for the sport. It's good that this has all happened because the connections of MAGE are really approachable, and it gives the sport good exposure. If we have, we've had winners in the past that owners and trainers aren't exactly approachable or exactly want to be the spokesperson for the sport. That's not exactly a win for horse racing. This was a win for horse racing because you can see how approachable and personable Ramiro is.
Yeah, no, you can see. I mean, he's an authentic, real person like anybody else, right?
And I will say both Degatos as well. I've met him at Preakness as well. I mean, Senior gets away with a little bit not having to as much because of his English. So, I know Baffert was even there going, well, I still get the attention because he doesn't know English. So I'm going to start saying I don't know English, but
I think
Junior's very approachable.
So, Sean, your internet coming in and out a little bit for sure. So tomorrow I'll be back with Charles to do Belmont. We'll probably start about 10 minutes before the first post. Hopefully we don't have the same impact on Belmont that we had on Horseshoe Indianapolis today. And then on Friday, Tom and I will be getting together for the Epsom Derby because they apparently don't have E's over there. So it's the Epsom Derby. That's a great big race over there as well. We had a good, successful 4 on Friday last week. Tom and I did. So hopefully we can carry through with that. We're going to take Saturday off because our good friend Hollywood Hay has got some barbecuing to do. And we respect that as well because Terry needs his 9 weeks off to fuel up that cell as well. Look at all the stuff I get because I'm at Parks. Not everyone's cup of tea, but haters make it worse than it really is. Yeah, John, I personally, I don't know why. I've never really been, I've never listened to critics in all my life. And I don't know why that is, that people insult me or whatever. It doesn't, but maybe because people insulted me so much on YouTube. But I've never really let this stuff bother me, Sean. I don't like, and you think you get it tough, boy. Jamie really got it really tough for a long time. And I don't know if she's still getting it or not, but I mean,
I don't think so.
Yeah. But, it's the keyboard again. I agree with Mike Tyson wholeheartedly. It's changed the dynamic of the way people communicate. They're not afraid to insult people that God knows that if you're face to face with them, they wouldn't have a crossword to say because they know it would be difficult, as they say in the Blues Brothers movie, to eat corn on the cob with no bleeping teeth. Anyway, Sean, that wraps us up for today. What do you have on tap for next week? Are you still trying to figure that out?
No, we got those. Jamie made the schedule for next week. So next week, Monday, we have Kathleen O'Connell, one of the most successful female trainers there's been.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Matt Kintz on Tuesday and Steve Hayes on Wednesday. I'm not exactly sure what their roles are. Jamie scheduled them. I don't have that down here. But Should be great shows. I know she's excited about them, and she's met them all, so should be some good shows. And then I'll also note that I'll be at the
Penn Mile
Friday. I almost said PA Derby because of John Da Silva. I keep wanting to mix those two, and I don't want to do that.
I know I had the Freudian slip with Forte. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, we all do that. So I'll be there, and I'll do as many pictures, videos, interviews as I can, do that kind of stuff. So pay attention to our socials.
You want people to interview you, or you're interviewing other people?
I'll interview other people. What are they going to interview me about?
I don't know. I was just curious.
On our channels?
You're a star now. And then one real final serious note, if everybody could tonight, just make sure as you know, normally Julie is in the spot. She has a family issue of high urgency. So she's obviously usually here out tonight. If you would be so kind to have her and her family in your thoughts and prayers tonight so that everything can work out to her family's best regard in terms of that, we would certainly appreciate it. If you could reach out to her on in any social media stuff like that, just tell her, hey, we're with you. It might make her feel in a very difficult situation more better, because we certainly hope for her and her family for everything to work out perfectly.
Absolutely.
Any other final thoughts, Sean, before we go?
No, I think that's it. My internet keeps going up and down, so yeah, we better just wrap it up.
Yes, and if you want to interview Sean, he's available at Penn Mile.
Yeah, we'll be available at Penn. Yeah, we want to do it on other channels besides mine. Sure, I'll do the interview.
All right. So, all right, folks. Well, that does take us wire to wire. We greatly appreciate you joining us as always. Look forward to getting back with you again tomorrow for Belmont, Friday for the Epsom Derby, back on Monday with Jamie and Sean for Horse Center. Until then, no matter what it is you're doing, we hope you get God's grace and that every single thing that you do ends up in
the winner circle.
Come on, enthusiasm, Sean. Have a
That
fantastic
was enthusiasm. The winner circle.
All right. Have a great evening.